So this is the 0910 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting on the internet under the banner of BabyAngelGeronimo editions. On Thursday, the 1st of June 2023, this is the second installment of our detailed rejection, factual rejection of the pack of lies mouthed by Lutfur Rahman as seen on a video which we retrieved this week from the internet. That video appears to have been made not long before the 5th of May 2022 Tower Hamlets Council elections, including the so-called mayor of Tower Hamlets election. One of the man makes in that video, in that speech, the spiel, is that he claimed that under his administration, which was abruptly brought to an end on the 23rd of April 2015 by the Election Commissioner Richard Morey. So that was October 2010 until the 23rd of April 2015 that Lutfur Rahman was actually referring to. And he was saying that under his incumbency, and I say that word mayor within quotation marks, as mayor at the expense of Tower Hamlets, housing, the provision of housing by Tower Hamlets Council and the housing services that the people in the borough of Tower Hamlets needed was better than anything that John Biggs provided in his period in post as, within quotes, mayor at the expense of Tower Hamlets from the 11th of June 2015 until the time when Lutfur Rahman was spieling sometime in 2022. Now, Tower Hamlets Council is corrupt, had been corrupt, and is doomed to remain festering in corruption for the foreseeable future. And because of that, I oppose the infliction of the post of mayor on Tower Hamlets, which I started doing in 2009 to 2010 when the first petition, so-called, was mounted by the mainly George Galloway fronted organization in Tower Hamlets that was being abused to bring about the constitutional robbery of the democratic residues that were available in Tower Hamlets. But with the infliction of the elected mayor, this robbery would complete the process. So I opposed that from the beginning, that is 2009 to 2010, and I'm still opposing this. for very good, sensible, factual reasons. Because as Lutfur Rahman has exhibited by his own corruption and his fraud and dishonesty while he was in post between October 2010 until the 23rd of April 2015, and as pointed out in the Hansard records of all the references to Lutfur Rahman's tenure in the so-called post as mayor at the expense of Tower Hamlets, confirm. Lutfur Rahman did not even speak at Tower Hamlets Council's so-called full council meetings because on the corrupt assertion that if he were to speak at council meetings, that would undermine, violate his, quote, human rights. So nobody knows, as far as the records of the proceedings of the Tower Hamlets Council meetings are concerned, proceedings of the meetings that took place during the period in question, which is from October 2010 until the 23rd of April 2015. Nobody can find any evidence of any audited, factual, independently audited information about what Tower Hamlets Council, as fronted by Lutfur Rahman, was doing in meeting the housing needs in the borough. So that's the very clear summary of the facts. In addition to that, Channel 4 television decided to launch a series called How to Get a Council House. And that series was one of the most prostituted, criminally conceived misinformation episodes operated by any British television station. Again, we have discussed the corruption in detail that was perpetrated by that series called How to Get a Council House. Here I am just including that as a heading in the updated context or context of updating the evidential statement rejecting the lies that Lutfur Rahman perpetrated, mouth spieled in that video that we accessed this week from the internet. And that video was manufactured, recorded not long before the 5th of May 2022 council elections in Tower Hamlets. When the Channel 4 series was broadcast about how to get a council house, it was supposed to be about a local council. Yet the people who participated and people who were featured in that series about Tower Hamlets were about 10 employees of Tower Hamlets Council. Employees, meaning politically and democratically, they cannot be treated as independent representatives of the democratic body if Tower Hamlets Council is treated for the sake of arguments as a democratic entity. There should have been a councillor, and in the constitutional mess up that the council became after the infliction on it of the post of elected mayor, that program on Channel 4 should have had as the main definitive source of policy explanation about what was happening on Tower Hamlets Council's duties to provide housing to the community concerned. The person should have been the incumbent post of, quote, mayor, which factually should have been Lutfur Rahman. But there was no sign of Lutfur Rahman. On that series, there was no sign of a single councillor on that series. The only people that were there included two liars. One is the liar Kevin Criminal Collins, who was in post as the chief executive of Tower Hamlets Council at that time, and the role that this criminal liar played in fabricating the referendum that was staged during 2009 to 2010 to impose an elected mayor post. So that was liar Kevin Collins. And the other liar appearing was a criminal called Colin Cormack. But the criminal Colin Cormack was not captioned or described by name in any significant detail. And Kevin Collins, the liar, faked his name as Colin, not Collins, Kevin Collins, but as Colin. And the other people that were shown on the Channel 4 program about how to get a council house in Tower Hamlets included a number of African or Asian employees of Tower Hamlets Council who had absolutely no legitimacy whatsoever to speak about the legal, democratic, empirical rights of the people in need of housing services. And these people, all of them, spewed lies and they said words to the effect that for X, Z so called reasons, people should not expect council, Tower Hamlets Council, to provide housing to them. It was like a form of saying what Robin Wales in Newham had said to campaigners in Newham against Robin Wales's corruption and criminality, especially in obstructing the delivery by Newham Council of housing services to the people in need of housing in Newham. Robin Wales said people who can't afford to live in Newham can't afford to live in Newham, which is something that I reminded him of on live television on the 14th of March 2018. And Wales could not, and he did not, challenge the accuracy or the context of what I said and what I did in explaining to him and to the viewers how corrupt Robin Wales had made Newham Borough and Newham Council, and how irrelevant he made the council to the needs of the people in one of the most deprived, most poverty stricken boroughs to be found anywhere in all of England. So, back to the Channel 4, how to get a council house. Now, the people who featured, of course, included the liars Kevin Collins and the liar Colin Cormack, but also the same Kevin Collins had already been involved separately, in addition to and beside this particular series, calling at a council house. In the process, it's like an agenda promoting the denial of service, of duty to the people by the council. And it was contained in a thing called undercover boss. This is the same thing that actually replicated, copied, imitated in substance what the multi part series, How to Get a Council House, contained. And this is where the Kevin Collins imitation of the name Colin and the fabrication of his kind of identity to the people that he was allegedly talking to without disclosing that he was in fact the incumbent in the post of chief executive. So when Lutfur Rahman spoke to people just before the election, 2005, 2022 council election, and he made claims about his regime doing remarkably positive things for meeting the housing needs of the people in the borough of Tower Hamlets. He was lying on all the facts. Now, given that the people he was speaking in front of were not there to interrogate him, to question him, to demand actual facts and factual evidence in substantiation of what he was claiming he had done. Whatever he said was for the benefit of the camera and as part of the propaganda that was intended to serve as brainwasher for the purpose of the election that was due to be held only in the next few weeks or days, whatever the distance between that actual event and the meetings and the elections. What happened was that nobody was asking him questions about housing. Nobody is asking him why there was no publication describing which one of the councillors at what date or dates had raised what issues about council failure to provide housing to the community. Now, since the election of the 5th of May 2022, it has been claimed in public statements on behalf of the people describing themselves as the Somali part of the demography in Tower Hamlets that the Tower Hamlets Council was guilty of racist discrimination against the Somali community. That is, in summary, what has been said. Now, this is not something that has just suddenly appeared. The discrimination that the Somalis have been caused and treated to had been going on for years and years and years. So, this not only covers the period 29 October 2010 until 23rd of April 2015, but it goes back many years before the 2010 milestone, because the 2010 milestone refers to the actual introduction of the post of elected mayor in Tower Hamlets. So the Somali community are currently, as I speak, on the 1st of June 2023, currently engaged in a series of legal and constitutional challenges aimed at exposing Tower Hamlets Council as a racist council which has been practicing racist discrimination against the people of Somali background and descent. Now, those people who were the targets of Lutfur Rahman's propaganda effort as exhibits, they didn't know about what the Somalis were doing or the Somalis would be doing or the Somalis would be saying. And they most certainly didn't know what, if any of the so called monitoring officer or officer post holders in succession in the name of Tower Hamlets Council would have had to say in terms of justifying, according to the law, the racist discrimination against the people describable as being of Somali background and descent. Tower Hamlets Council has never had an accountable monitoring officer who has actually provided neutral, independent, fact checked, accountable answers to the questions that dominate the people's minds about Tower Hamlets Council. So Lutfur Rahman was telling lies on every level in that video. So we shall be, of course, elaborating on his lies by citing dates and chapter and verses, in addition to what I have already said here in this edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the banner of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the banner of the BabyAngelGeronimo editions on the 1st of June 2023 in due course. Then Lutfur Rahman said something about the addressing youth needs. Amazingly, Rahman was not questioned by anyone when he made that boast about addressing the needs of the young people in the borough. So he was able to gloss over and ignore the obligation that he had to explain how one of these pupils at the Langdon Park School in Poplar was murdered by his fellow Bangladeshi pupils in 2013, which was the fourth year, calendar year, of Lutfur Rahman in post as the elected mayor. When I visited Taramla's council shortly after Ohid Ahmad's silence was noticed about Ajmal Ahmad's murder, as I have said in previous editions, Ohid Ahmad, who was supposed to be the deputy mayor in place and also responsible for the so called community safety brief in the so called cabinet of Lutfur Rahman. Ohid Ahmad was completely irresponsive, silent on what happened with the murder, the same race, if you like, same ethnicity, crime committed by the murderers of Ajmal Ahmad. And I have detailed various other things that Lutfur Rahman's deputy mayor, Ohid Ahmad, said and did in denying any involvement in any responsibility about safety of the young people and safety of the ordinary people in the community. And yet, Lutfur Rahman shamelessly and ignorantly referred to Ohid Ahmad as the person involved in ensuring safety in the community. But Ohid Ahmad was lying to me and was refusing to answer questions about his links with the police and what the police were doing in addressing the criminality that was going on even among the Bangladeshi victims and Bangladeshi perpetrators in the bara. Now, nobody at that meeting where Lutfur Rahman was making the boasts and claims was asking any question whatsoever. The video makes it clear that it's Lutfur Rahman who was using these people as exhibits, as silent exhibits, occasionally showing their enthusiasm as briefed by clapping. And Lutfur Rahman punctuated every few sentences the word Inshallah. He was lying. That was intended to give the impression that he was God fearing and he was expecting God to give him the courage and the facilities and the resources and the resolve to deliver his duties to the local community. That was absolutely typically dishonest, untruthful. So we shall be talking about all of those in further detail, chapter and verse, in later editions. At this point, it is just half an hour since we have started broadcasting. This particular edition we shall come to an end at 9:33 GMT on Thursday, the 1st of June 2023.